There is always something more to learn, even for a master. Oftentimes in life, when in the presence of exceptional mentors, experts of their craft, it's easy to forget that they too can make mistakes, that they too are human. Even the greatest of teachers, the greatest of mentors, the greatest of masters have their faults, their regrets, their failures. And sometimes even these great people can get completely and utterly lost. However, what defines a true master is the ability to acknowledge their weakness, acknowledge their failure, regardless of everything they've ever accomplished. To accept that one cannot control destiny, but instead must flow with it. And among thousands of stories, thousands of journeys, there is one character, one man who embodies this idea the best. A man who struggles with himself for his entire life, and a man who, after all his pain, all his suffering, learns the value of embracing his failures. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Master Shifu, who takes us on the most beautiful journey in Kung Fu Panda.
Promise me, Shifu. Promise me you will believe.
There is a genius illusion behind the portrayal of Master Shifu, because when we were first introduced to him, he was presented as the standard mentor character, who was strict and required the utmost discipline from his students. However, as the story progressed, that portrayal was subverted, as the layers behind his character were revealed, and we found out how broken of a man Shifu truly was. After all, Master Shifu's journey revolves around the idea of letting go of the past and embracing one's failures. Shifu's struggles lie within himself, and throughout his life he's made to confront a single question over and over. What does it mean to teach Kung Fu? And twice, Shifu thought he had the answer. The first time his answer was love, and the second time it was discipline. But what he didn't realize was that love and discipline could not stand on their own. They were each one half of the equation. After all, love without discipline destroyed Shifu's legacy, and discipline without love destroyed Shifu's heart. It all began with Shifu's greatest failure, Tai Lung, his son. Shifu trained Tai Lung, not only with the hopes of a mentor, but with the love of a father, and unfortunately that love ended up unleashing a monster. Shifu believed Tai Lung was destined for greatness, and Tai Lung, hearing this for his entire life, believed it as well. But Tai Lung did not just believe, he demanded greatness. However, greatness does not come to those who chase it with ill intentions. After Master Oogway denied him the Dragon Scroll, denied him to be the legendary Dragon Warrior, Tai Lung couldn't accept it and went on a rampage, so much so that he had to be subdued by Oogway and sentenced to a life of imprisonment. And this broke Shifu to the core. His first answer, love, was completely shattered. Until the very last moment, Shifu was unaware of the monster he'd created. In his unconditional love for his son, Shifu had instilled him with great hopes and great expectations, great power and great skill, but forgotten to instill him with the other half of Kung Fu. The spirit, the mind, the heart. The humility to accept one's flaws, to flow with destiny rather than control it. But how could Shifu instill in Tai Lung what he himself was unaware of? So this left him with only one answer, his second answer. To never be attached again. To never shower his students with love and affection, rather be strict, stern, and disciplined. And while it did work for the Furious Five, it had a detrimental effect on Shifu himself. He became detached, cold, impatient, and to an extent, lost. He was physically, methodically sound, but his mind and his heart were filled with noise, filled with chaos. However, one fateful day, everything changed. After all, Oogway foretells that Tai Lung will return, but also declares an aloof young panda named Po as the Dragon Warrior, who was not only destined to defeat Shifu's creation, but would also help Shifu realize the true essence of Kung Fu. What's so interesting about Po being added to the equation is that it completely breaks any and all walls that Shifu had put up. Before, you could see that while he was impatient, Shifu still pretended like he could hold his composure. Yet, whenever he's in the presence of the panda, Shifu loses his mind within seconds. To Shifu, who was now dealing with the shock of his son returning, the prophecy regarding Po on top of that was like an insult to everything he had ever accomplished. Tai Lung, the Furious Five, these were warriors of skill and potential like no other. What was he supposed to do with a panda who made noodles for a living? In a way, Po actually broke Shifu more than he had ever been broken in his entire life. And in my opinion, those first few weeks of dealing with Po was seeing Master Shifu at his worst. He doesn't resort to love or discipline, rather pure unfiltered hatred. Calling Po fat, useless, and a disgrace didn't mean anything to Shifu, but to Po, this was one of his heroes. It's disheartening to see, but even more disheartening to think about from Po's perspective, who's been wanting to learn Kung Fu his entire life. Yet, Shifu is too blinded by his rage, just like his son was, to realize what he's doing. Until he receives the message he was dreading this entire time. Tai Lung had escaped. And this brings us to one of my favorite scenes in Kung Fu Panda. The scene where Shifu was desperately and completely broken so that the seeds for his growth could finally be planted. Of course, this is the conversation between Oogway and Shifu at the base of a peach tree. The analogy made with the peach tree is one of my favorite conversations in fiction, and I love how perfectly it embodies Shifu's entire journey. Not to mention, I love the idea of Shifu constantly challenging Oogway on the ideas of destiny, control, and the essence of Kung Fu itself. It's a moment that serves as the ultimate breaking point for Shifu, a moment where he's desperately asking the universe, what, why, how? And so he begs Oogway to help him. He desperately asks him to give him answers. But the truth is, Shifu already knew the answer. Shifu makes the claim that there are things that can be controlled about the peach tree, such as where to plant it and when to make the fruit fall. However, Oogway's response leaves Shifu as well as us lost for words. Oogway's words here are just beautiful, and the way he phrases his philosophies are nothing short of poetic. He says, that may be true, but at the end of the day, it is a peach tree. You may wish for an apple or an orange, but you will only get a peach. How you nurture that peach and guide it will determine how well it blossoms. Simply put, you cannot control destiny. You cannot control your students to be what you want them to be. You must simply nurture them so that they can grow to be the best versions of themselves and fulfill their destinies. In other words, you must surround them with love and raise them with discipline. That was what it meant to teach Kung Fu. The answer was there all along. All Shifu had to do was believe. As Master Oogway turns to the sky, as he leaves behind these last words, as Shifu's oldest and only friend departs from this world, it finally hits him. And for the first time in many, many years, he decides to believe. However, now, Shifu had to take the first step. After hearing about Tai Lung's escape, Po is scared out of his mind and tries to run away. Shifu intercepts him, and this is the first actual honest conversation between these two characters. Po is frustrated that Shifu, who's been insulting him this entire time, is now suddenly telling him that he has to defeat the legendary Tai Lung. Po is frustrated that he thought Shifu could change him, but all Shifu did was make him feel even more self-conscious. And when Shifu tells him that he will change Po, the panda asks him the ultimate question: how? And here is when Shifu takes that first step. The first step to becoming a true master. The first step to accepting himself for who he was. The first step to becoming one with Kung Fu.
How? I don't know! I don't know.
That first step was admitting that he didn't know the answer. And although Shifu was troubled by this at the time, it's exactly what he needed to say. He needed to get that out of his system. He needed to let Po and himself know that he wasn't perfect. And that's okay. By accepting that he didn't have all the answers, Shifu embraced his failures and let go of the shackles of guilt, shame, and control. After all,
there is always something more to learn, even for a master.
Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, consider liking, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Kung Fu Panda is one of my favorite movies that inspires me every single time I watch it, so I really wanted to talk about it and hopefully convey the message I learned to you guys. If you enjoy the content and want to be a part of the community, be sure to check out my Discord server as well as follow me on Twitter, both links in the description below. Other than that, I guess I'll see you on the next one.